Shalom Aleichem. We are doing Daf Yud Chet Amud Bet. I realized the recording from last week did not come out good, so we're going to review the Amud just to have it on the recording. We're going to start from the bottom of Daf Yud Chet Amud Aleph, where it says Amar le Abai le Rav Yosef, very, very bottom. So we're in the middle of a sugya here, Yesh Zika or Ein Zika. We have a big machloket. We start off the sugya with Rav Huna Amarav. He says Ein Zika. Ein Zika means that when a lady falls to Yibum, there is some connection to the family, but it's not so strong that it'll make her relatives asurot on the brother. So therefore, if she falls to Yibum and she dies, the brother is allowed to marry her mother. That was Rav Huna Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda argued and he said, Yesh Zika. Yesh Zika means that when she falls to Yibum, that connection that she has to the brothers is so strong that to a certain degree we view it as if her mother is really like his mother-in-law, and even after she dies, the brother is not allowed to marry her mother. So that's a machloket. Yesh Zika, Ein Zika. Yesh Zika means the connection to the brothers is so strong that her relatives become asurot on the brother, and Ein Zika means that the connection is not that strong and her relatives will not become asurot on her brother. So Amar le Abai le Rav Yosef. So Abai says to Rav Yosef, Had Rav Yehuda de Shmuel. That which Rav Yehuda said, Yesh Zika, that was really according to Shmuel. It's Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Generally, we have Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav or Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda quotes things from both Rav and from Shmuel. Abai is saying in this case, he quoted it from Shmuel. Ditnan. Shomeret Yavam shekidesh achiv achota. If we have a braita to prove that Shmuel says, or Mishnah rather, that proves that Shmuel says this. How so? You have Shomeret Yavam shekidesh achiv achota. So you have three brothers: Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Okay, so Reuven dies. His wife falls to Yibum to Shimon and Levi. Shimon is Mikadesh, the sister of this Shomeret Yavam. So you have two sisters, Rachel and Leah. Rachel was Reuven's wife. Reuven dies. Rachel falls to Yibum, to Shimon and Levi. And Shimon is Mikadesh, Rachel's sister, Leah. So, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera Amru, Omrim lo hamten ad she'aseh achicha ma'aseh. They say in the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, that Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera says that we tell this brother Shimon, who is Mikadesh, the sister of the lady who is zikukat to him to Yibum, we say, wait, don't go through with this, don't go through with the marriage until the other brother Levi takes care of the zika and either does Yibum or Chalitza to Rachel. So once again, Reuven's wife, this lady Rachel over here, she falls to Yibum to Shimon and Levi. Shimon is Mekadesh, her sister. We say, Shimon, don't go through with it. Why? Because she is zakuk to you. Yesh Zika, and you cannot be with her sister. So that shows Yesh Zika. There's an Yisur of Achot Zikukato. You're with the sister of someone who you're zakuk to. That means Yesh Zika. So we say wait until Levi does something and marries this girl, or does Chalitza, and therefore it won't be Achot Zikukato anymore, and then you could go through with the marriage. So V'amar Shmuel halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, and Shmuel says halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, which means Shmuel holds Yesh Zika. So this is again Abaye was saying that which Rav Yehuda said Yesh Zika, that's going according to Shmuel. He was quoting Shmuel. Amar le, so Rav Yosef, he heard Abaye saying, oh, this Rav Yehuda said it in the name of Shmuel. Amar le di de Rav mai. But what if we would have said it in the name of Rav? Kasha de Rava de Rav, it would be a stira in Rav. Dilma Amoraim ninu v'aliv de Rav. So maybe they're different Amoraim. Hold, Rav said different things. Meaning maybe Rav Huna said, you have this all the time in Shas. Rav Huna said that Rav said Ein Zika. And maybe Rav Yehuda says that Rav said Yesh Zika. How do you know it's Shmuel? Maybe he's Rav holds this. Rav Yehuda is saying this in the name of Rav. So the Gemara says, Kema deit mar mishmei de Shmuel behedia o mishmei de Rav ke'amorai lo shavkinan mishmei de Shmuel behedia o mukminan ke'amorai ve'aliba de Rav. Since we have clearly straight out that Shmuel said this, and if we were to say that it was in the name of Rav, it would become a machloket amoraim in the name of Rav, so we don't put aside what Shmuel said explicitly to make it a machloket amoraim in the name of Rav. Since we have Shmuel saying it, Beferush, so we say that he said the name of Shmuel. Amar Rav Kahana, Amrit l'shma'ate kameh de Rav Zvid min ha'arda. Rav Kahana said, I said this in front of Rav Zvid min ha'arda. Amar, Rav Zvid said, Atun hachi matnitu la. Anan v'hedia matnin la. He said, you learn it like this, but we have it straight out. We have straight out that Rav Yehuda said it in the name of Shmuel. We don't need to go and assume that he said it in the name of Shmuel and find the Mishnah to prove that makes sense that Rav Yehuda said it in the name of Shmuel. Yesh zika. We teach it straight up that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Yesh zika. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Shomeret Yavam Shemeta Asur Be'ima. It said, we have it straight out. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Shomeret Yavam, that dies, a lady who's waiting to do Yibum, that dies, the brother is allowed to marry her mother. Asur Be'ima. His brother is not allowed to marry her mother because Yesh zika, and her mother is like his mother-in-law. Al Maksavar Yesh Zika. So you see that he holds Yesh Zika. Vaz Shmuel Ta'ameh, and Shmuel is going according to that which he holds. Damar Shmuel Achak Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, because Shmuel held there's an isur of Achot Zekukato, like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, that this lady over here is not allowed to be with Shimon because she's Achot Zekukato. Vitzriche. And you need both teachings. You need Shmuel to tell me halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, and you also need Shmuel to tell me that if a Shomeret Yavam dies, the brother is asur to marry her mother. Diashminan Yesh Zika. If it would have just taught me Yesh Zika, if meaning Shmuel would have just said Yesh Zika, so Hava Mina Hani Mili Bechad. I would have thought that's only when there's one brother. Aval Betray Lo. But when there's two brothers, no. Kamash Malan. Therefore, he has to teach me that even when there's multiple brothers, meaning if Shmuel would have just said that when a lady who's a Shomeret Yavam dies, the brother is not allowed to marry her mother, I would have thought, okay, that's because she fell to Yibum in front of one brother, so by one brother, Yesh Zika, and then if she dies, okay, so there was Yesh Zika, but maybe if she would have fallen to Yibum in front of multiple brothers, maybe Ein Zika. So therefore, he has to tell me, no, halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, even when she falls to Yibum in front of two brothers, like this case here in the picture. When Rachel falls to Yibum in front of Shimon and Levi, we say Yesh Zika, and Shimon cannot marry her sister. V'yash min halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, if he would have only said halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera in this case where Shimon was Mekadesh Achot Zekukato, Hava mina hani mili mechayim. I would have thought it's only in Isur, meaning we only say Yesh Zika and he cannot be engaged to her sister. Her relatives become Asurot. The relatives of the Shomeret Yavam become Asurot on the brother only when the Shomeret Yavam is still alive, when this lady who fell to Yibum is still alive. But after she dies, her relatives would be Mutarot, meaning her mother also would be Muteret to marry the brother. So therefore he has to tell us that Shomeret Yavam Shomeret Asur Be'ima, to tell me that even after she dies, there's an Isur of the brother to marry her mother-in-law, because the Zika does not go away unless there's either Yibum or Chalitza. Says the next Mishnah. So next Mishnah takes us back to Eshet Achiv Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. So in the previous Mishnah, these two Mishnahs are back to back. They're really one long Mishnah, kind of, as we're going to see. So the first Mishnah taught us a case of Eshet Achiv Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. You had the first, there's going to be two cases. There's going to be the first Mishnah and this Mishnah. First Mishnah taught us about a case of Yibem, of Nolad V'achakach Yibem. First, just to recap the case, you have Reuven and Shimon are alive at the same time. Okay, in this case, Reuven is in the middle here. Reuven dies, and Levi is born. Okay, so Levi is born, Nolad, and then Achakach Yibem, and then Shimon does Yibum to Reuven's wife. So this lady is an Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo of Levi. She's the wife of Levi's brother, who Levi never saw. They never lived at the same time. So she is an erva on Levi. So this is a case where Levi was born into this situation, and then Shimon did Yibum. That was the previous Mishnah. Says our Mishnah a little bit of a different variation of the case. Shnei Achim. Umet echad mehem, ve'yibem hashani et eshet achiv. So you have two brothers that are alive, Reuven and Shimon, right here. Okay, Reuven dies, And then Shimon does Yibum. Still Levi is not in the picture. He's still not born yet. Shimon does Yibum. V'achar kach nolad lahenach. And then Levi, the third brother, is born. Umet. And then Shimon dies. So Harishona yotza mishum esh dachiv shelo haya ba'olamo. This lady here, Reuven's original wife, she is an eshet ach shelo haya ba'olamo of Levi. Even though Shimon already did Yibum to her when Levi was born, it doesn't matter. She was originally married to the brother of Levi, who Levi was never in the world with. So she's Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo of Levi. So she's Pitura from Yibum and Chalitza. She has no Zika to Levi, no Yibum, no Chalitza. V'ashniya Mishum Tzarata. And this one is her Tzara, because after Shimon did Yibum, they're Tzarot. Asaba Ma'amar V'med. Now let's say Shimon just did Ma'amar, and then Shimon died. So the halacha of the first wife is the same. She's pitura because she's still eshet ach shelo haya ba'olamo. But since Shimon didn't really do yibum, he did a ma'amar. He just did kiddushin to her. So this one, the Shimon's wife, she's not really pitura because she's not really a tzara, because there was just ma'amar. There was no yibum done between Shimon and Reuven's wife. So she requires Yibum or Chalitza. Problem is she can't do Yibum because since he did Ma'amar, they're like a shtickle tzaras. They're, it doesn't look right. Therefore, she is not allowed to do Yibum, so she has to do Chalitza. Rabbi Shimon Omer miyabim leizum mishirtzeh. Rabbi Shimon says that he could do Yibum to either one he wants, or choletz leizum, or she does Chalitza to anyone she wants. Now, Rabbi Shimon is talking about a case where no Ma'amar was done. Rabbi Shimon seems to be talking about the case of our Mishnah, which is first Reuven died, and then Shimon did Yibim, and then Levi was born. So Levi was born into a situation where she's already had done Yibum to Shimon, right? Reuven's wife had already done Yibum to Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon says it seems to be in that case, Rabbi Shimon says that Levi can do Yibum to either one, because when he came into the world, they're both Shimon's wives. Reuven is out of the picture. He's done. He's finished. We don't care about what happened in the past. Levi is born into a situation where she had already done Yibum, and Shimon dies, so he could do Yibum to either one. That is what it seems. Rabbi Oshia throws a curveball. Says the Gemara, Amarav Oshia, really it's supposed to be Rebbe Oshia, as we'll see in the next daf. Rabbi Oshia Cholek haya Rabbi Shimon af barishona. Rabbi Oshia says Rabbi Shimon argued even in the first Mishnah, meaning the Mishnah that we had the previous Mishnah. In the case where Levi was born before Shimon did Yibum to Reuven's wife. Mimai. And he says, I'll prove it to you. How do I know this? How do you know this? Because there's a whole extra Mishnah. Bava Deresha Leman Katanila, the original Mishnah, the first Mishnah that we had, the Mishnah of Nolad, where Levi is born and then Shimon does Yibum, Nolad v'achakach Yibem. What's the purpose of teaching us that Mishnah? If you're telling me it's coming to teach me a chidush according to the Rabbanan, that the Rabbanan say that in that case it's Eshdach lo haya ba'olamo and she's p'tura from Yibum and so is the Tzara. So Hashta Yibem u'besof Nolad. Now, in the case of Yibim, where Shimon does Yibum first, and then afterwards Levi is born, that when Levi came into the world, he came into a situation where she was already married. Asur Rabbanan. In that case, Rabbanan say it's Eshedach shelo haya ba'olamo. Nolad v'achkach Yibim mibaya. Of course, in a case of Nolad, where Levi is born into a situation where she's not married yet, of course she's going to be Asura on Levi. Meaning, if Rabbanan are Machmir, or Rabbanan say that she's considered Eshdach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo, even when she did Yibum before Levi's born, for sure if she didn't do Yibum, she's Eshdach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. Ella Lav Rabbi Shimon Yitzrich. Rather, it must be that the first Mishnah is coming to teach me a chidush according to Rabbi Shimon, that to tell me even in a case of Nolad v'achakach Yibem, Rabbi Shimon says that's still not Eshdach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo, and you could still do Yibum. Now we're going to see what the svar is for that momentarily. The first Mishnah is coming to teach me how far Rabbi Shimon goes, that even in a scenario where Levi is firstborn, and then Shimon does Yibum, still this lady is Asura on Levi. I'm sorry, Rabbi Shimon, that still she is allowed to do Yibum to Levi, even though Levi was born when she was a Shomeret Yavam, before any Yibum was done. And this Mishnah is coming to teach us how strict Rabbanan are, that even in a case of Yibem, where Shimon does Yibum first, and then Levi is born, still Rabbanan say that Levi is not allowed to do Yibum and she goes out free. Uvdinhu deniflog Rabbi Shimon bereisha. Really, Rabbi Shimon should have voiced his opinion and argued in the first Mishnah. But he waited for the Rabbanan to finish what they had to say, and then he argued on them. Meaning, he waited for the Rabbanan to say the first Mishnah, to say the case of Nolad v'achar Yibem. And then they said the case of Yibem v'achar Nolad. And then Rabbi Shimon argued on the whole entire thing, on both cases. So the Gemara says, okay, so if Nolad v'achar Yibem, in a case where Levi is born, and then Shimon does Yibum, that's not Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo, according to Rabbi Shimon. So then what is? How do you find such a case of Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo? So the Gemara says, Bechad Acha Umit Venolad Lo Ach. The case is, let's delete one of these people here. There's only two brothers. There's one brother. Let's just say there's Reuven. Let's delete Shimon. So you just have Reuven. So Reuven dies, and then he leaves over a wife, and then Levi is born. So that is Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. She's an erva. There's no Yibum in that case. That's the case of Rabbi Shimon. Inami, or betray, Velo Yibem Velo Mit. Or in a case where you have two living brothers at the same time, and Reuven dies, and Shimon does not do Yibum, and Shimon does not die, and then Levi is born. So in that case, Levi, she's Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo. She cannot marry Levi. As long as Shimon is still alive and he's able to do Yibum, she's not allowed to marry Levi. Bishlama Yibem v'achagach nolad ki ashcha be'eter ashkacha. So the Gemara says, I understand a case of Yibem v'achagach nolad, when first Shimon did Yibum, and afterwards Levi was born. I understand in that case why, I understand the Shita of Rabbi Shimon, that he's allowed to do Yibum. Because when Levi came into the world and met Reuven's, his deceased brother's wife, she was already married to Shimon. So he never met her as a Shomeret Yavam. He met her as a regular sister-in-law. Therefore, Yibum would apply. That makes sense. Nolad v'achagach Yibem, but in the case of Nolad v'achagach Yibem, when Levi was born, he originally met Reuven's, his deceased brother Reuven's wife, as a Shomeret Yavam, who was Asura on him. So if that's the case, if she was Asura on him, then even after Shimon does Yibum, she should be Asura on him. Because we have a Svara Nesra, which we're going to learn about. Ella Nolad v'achagach my ta'ama. In the case of Nolad, where Levi is born, and then afterwards Shimon does Yibum, what's the reason for Rabbi Shimon? Why does he say that she is allowed to do Yibum to Levi after Shimon dies? So says the Gemara, Kasavar yesh zika v'zika kiknusa damya. Says the Gemara that Rabbi Shimon holds yesh zika to another degree. Yesh zika v'zika kiknusa damya, which means when Reuven died, this was before Levi was born, the moment Reuven died, we say yesh zika, that Reuven's wife is connected to the other brother Shimon, and zika kiknusa damya, that it's almost ki'ilu, it's as if they're married. So that when Levi is born, it's like he's born into a situation where she already had done Yibum to a certain degree, meaning to the degree that she's not going to be considered a Shomeret Eshet Ach Shelo Haya Ba'olamo on Levi after Shimon dies. Matkif la Rav Yosef asks on this. So basically we're saying a massive chidush, just to clarify. We're saying a massive chidush. We're saying Rabbi Shimon holds yesh zika v'zika kiknusa damya, which means when Reuven dies, Reuven's wife is connected to Shimon, and it's ki'ilu as if she's married to Shimon, she's knusa to Shimon, and therefore when Shimon dies, she falls to Yibum to Levi. Even though Levi was born before a formal Yibum was done by Shimon, it doesn't make a difference. Since Yesh Zika and Zika Kiknusa, and when Reuven died, she was Zikuka to Shimon only and definitely. Therefore, when Shimon dies, she falls to Yibum to Levi, and Levi could do Yibum to her. So Hashta. So now Rav Yosef asks on this. Matkif Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef asks on this. So you have Rav Oshia saying. Yesh. Rav Oshia saying that Rabbi Shimon, he says even in a case of nolad v'achagach yibem, it's not going to be eshtach shaloya ba'olamo, and Levi is allowed to do yibum to Reuven's wife after Shimon does yibum and dies. So Rav Yosef, and we said the reason is because yesh zika v'zika kiknusa damya. So Rav Yosef asked on his Magla, Rav Yosef ashta zika u'ma'amar b'safkla Rabbi Shimon kiknusa damya ilav kiknusa damya zika l'chudami bai. He says, I'm going to show you that according to Rabbi Shimon, we don't say zika kiknusa damya, because even in a case where ma'amar was done, Rabbi Shimon has a safek whether that's kiknusa damya. So for sure, in a case where ma'amar, where we don't even have ma'amar, just regular zika, for sure he's not going to hold zika kiknusa damya. So this is where we got up to. Be'ezras Hashem, we'll continue from here tomorrow.